In the dimly lit corner of Angelo's restaurant, fame and desperation crossed paths on a rain-soaked Los Angeles night. Lisa Martinez, her hands trembling from exhaustion, counted the tips that would determine if her children ate next week. She didn't notice the shadow moving between empty tables, fingers quick and greedy. But someone else did, a quiet figure in black, nursing a cooling cup of coffee. Keanu Reeves wasn't supposed to be there that night, but what he witnessed in those few minutes would spark a chain of events that transformed not just one family's future, but an entire community's understanding of kindness. This is the untold story of how a Hollywood legend, a desperate single mother, and an unexpected act of theft collided to create something extraordinary. Angelo's restaurant stood as a beacon of old-world charm on Wilshire Boulevard, its warm golden lights a stark contrast to the modern steel and glass towers surrounding it. For 20 years, the red-checkered tablecloths and bottles of Chianti wrapped in straw baskets had transported guests to a corner of Naples. But for Lisa Martinez, those same tables represented survival. At 34, Lisa's life hadn't turned out as planned. 2 years ago, her husband Marco's heart attack during his afternoon jog left her alone with 8-year-old Sofia and 6-year-old Miguel. The life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses, and their modest savings disappeared into the endless stream of bills. Her degree in literature gathered dust while she worked double shifts at Angelo's, transforming from an aspiring writer into a master of balancing 4 plates at once. The restaurant's owner, Giovanni Russo, had known Lisa since she started as a busser fresh out of college. He watched her climb to head waitress, marry Marco, and build her family. When tragedy struck, Giovanni kept her on the busiest sections, knowing those tables meant better tips. But lately, something felt off about the money. Lisa's regular customers hadn't changed, yet her tips had steadily declined over the past month. Mike Thompson, the new waiter, arrived 3 weeks ago with impeccable references and a winning smile. In his mid-20s, he charmed the elderly regulars with stories about his time backpacking through Europe. His section sat adjacent to Lisa's, their tables forming a patchwork of white linens and carefully arranged silverware. He always seemed to finish his closing duties quickly, leaving while others still counted their tips. Tonight, the autumn rain drummed against the windows, creating rivers of light on the glass. The dinner rush had ended, leaving behind the quiet symphony of clinking glasses and murmured conversations from the few remaining tables. In the corner, partially hidden by one of Giovanni's prized olive trees, sat a solitary figure in a black jacket. He'd arrived without fanfare, politely declining the prime window seat for the more secluded spot. Lisa's feet ached as she delivered his 3rd cup of coffee. The night's tip sat heavily in her apron pocket, another disappointing total. Sofia needed new shoes for school, and Miguel's asthma medication was running low. The electric bill's final notice glared at her from the break room bulletin board, its red stamp a constant reminder of her precarious balancing act. The kitchen staff prepared for closing, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables for tomorrow's prep giving way to the clatter of dishes being washed. Soon she'd count out her register, tally her credit card slips, and head home to her sleeping children and the stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen table. But first, she needed to finish her closing duties. Duties that would lead her to discover something that would change everything about this ordinary Thursday night. The ancient brass clock above Angelo's bar showed 10:45 p.m. when Lisa began her closing routine. She gathered her credit card receipts and headed to the small office tucked behind the kitchen, its wood-paneled walls covered with faded photos of Giovanni's family back in Naples. The night's earnings felt light in her apron pocket, continuing a pattern that had started roughly around the time Mike joined the staff. Through the office's small window, Lisa could see the dining room, now empty except for the quiet man in the corner. He'd been there for hours, occasionally glancing up from his book to sip his coffee. Something about him seemed familiar, but she'd been too busy with her tables to place where she might have seen him before. The security monitor mounted above Giovanni's desk displayed grainy black and white footage of the restaurant's various angles. Lisa normally paid it little attention, but movement on one of the screens caught her eye. Mike was still out there, though his section had been empty for at least 30 minutes. He moved between tables with an odd purposefulness, his hands disappearing beneath table edges and into his apron pockets. Lisa's heart quickened as she watched him approach a table she'd served earlier, a friendly elderly couple who always tipped generously. Mike's hand darted out, quick as a card trick, and something disappeared into his pocket. The truth hit Lisa like a physical blow. He wasn't just cleaning tables. He was stealing tips, and not just tonight. This explained everything about the past month's diminishing earnings. In the corner, the quiet customer set down his book. His dark eyes followed Mike's movements with careful attention, his expression unchanging but alert. Mike hadn't noticed him watching, too focused on his methodical sweep of the recently vacated tables. Lisa's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone to record the security footage. The screen showed Mike approaching her section now, his movements precise and practiced. Each stolen dollar represented something vital: Miguel's medication, Sophia's school supplies, the electricity that kept their small apartment warm at night. The quiet customer stood, his movements so subtle it barely registered on the security feed. He adjusted his black jacket and took 3 steps toward Mike, who remained oblivious to the approaching figure. Lisa recognized him then, her breath catching in her throat. The man from countless movies, known as much for his kindness off-screen as his intensity on it, was about to intersect with her small drama. In the dining room, Mike reached for another table, but his hand froze mid-motion. Keanu Reeves stood beside him, casual yet commanding, like a shadow suddenly given form. The security camera couldn't pick up their words, but Lisa saw Mike's face drain of color. He took a stumbling step backward, nearly colliding with a chair. Giovanni emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He stopped short at the tableau before him, his new waiter backing away from one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Lisa burst through the office door, her phone still recording the security footage, her voice already forming the words to explain everything. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the windows clear and dark like mirrors. In their reflection, Lisa could see the whole scene playing out: Mike's guilty stance, Giovanni's confusion, her own desperate hope for justice, and Keanu's calm presence anchoring it all. The next few minutes would change the trajectory of not just her life, but everyone present in Angelo's that rain-soaked Thursday night. The tension in the room built like a slowly tightening spring. Mike's eyes darted between the exit and the small group now facing him. His apron pocket bulged with the evidence of his theft, each stolen bill carrying the weight of broken trust and desperate choices. Keanu took another step forward, his expression not angry but something more complex, understanding mixed with determination. He opened his mouth to speak, and everyone in Angelo's held their breath, waiting to hear what this unexpected guardian angel would say. Keanu Reeves stood in the dim light of Angelo's dining room, his presence filling the space with unexpected gravity. His voice, when it finally broke the silence, carried the same gentle authority that had marked his decades in Hollywood. "I've been watching you for the past hour," he said to Mike, each word measured and calm. "The question isn't what you did anymore. It's why." Mike's shoulders slumped, the bravado that had carried him through weeks of deception crumbling under the weight of discovery. His hand moved to his apron pocket, where the stolen bills felt like they were burning through the fabric. Giovanni had moved closer, his weathered face a map of confusion and dawning anger as he pieced together what had happened in his beloved restaurant. Lisa stepped forward, her phone displaying the security footage that confirmed everyone's suspicions. Her voice trembled but held firm as she explained the pattern she'd noticed: the declining tips, the suspicious movements, the careful timing of Mike's actions. The evidence mounted like the storm clouds that had emptied themselves over Los Angeles earlier that evening. "I needed the money," Mike burst out, his composure finally breaking. "My mom's medical bills, they keep coming, and the insurance won't cover her treatments. I thought just taking a little wouldn't hurt anyone. These people have so much, and I—" His voice trailed off as he looked at Lisa, really looked at her for the first time, and saw the exhaustion etched into her face, the worry lines that spoke of her own desperate struggles. Giovanni muttered something in Italian, a prayer or a curse, running his hands through his silver hair. The restaurant had been his life's work, built on trust and family values. Each table held memories of celebrations, proposals, reunions, moments of joy now tainted by this betrayal. His voice, when he found it, carried the weight of those years. "You could have come to me. We take care of our own here." Keanu's eyes hadn't left Mike, but they'd softened somewhat. He reached into his jacket, pulling out his wallet with deliberate slowness. "I understand desperation," he said, his words carrying the weight of personal experience. "But stealing from someone else who's struggling isn't the answer. Lisa here works double shifts to support her children. Every dollar you took wasn't just money, it was school supplies, medication, food on their table." The actor pulled out several $100 bills, placing them on the nearest table. "This is to replace what was taken," he continued, before adding more bills to the stack. "And this is for Lisa's next few shifts, to make up for the losses." He turned to Giovanni, his expression serious. But money alone doesn't solve the real problem here. Lisa felt tears welling in her eyes, not just from the unexpected generosity, but from the validation of her struggles, the acknowledgement of her silent battle to keep her family afloat. Mike had sunk into a chair, his face buried in his hands, the weight of his actions finally fully hitting him. Giovanni moved to call the police, but Keanu raised a hand. "Wait," he said, looking between Mike and Lisa. "Sometimes justice needs to be tempered with mercy. Sometimes people deserve a chance to make things right." He turned to Mike, his voice firm but not unkind. "You're going to return every dollar you took. You're going to apologize to everyone here. And then you're going to tell us exactly how much your mother's treatments cost." Mike looked up, confusion replacing the fear on his face. Lisa found herself holding her breath, watching this surreal scene unfold in the restaurant she'd worked in for so many years. Giovanni stood straighter, his restaurateur's instincts recognizing a moment of possibility. "I have a proposition," Keanu continued, looking around the room at each person in turn. "One that might help prevent something like this from happening again. Because the real tragedy here isn't just the theft, it's that people feel so alone in their struggles that they make desperate choices." He pulled out his phone, already forming a plan that would transform Angelo's from a simple Italian restaurant into something more. A place where second chances and sustainable solutions could take root. The soft glow of Angelo's chandeliers illuminated an impromptu meeting unlike any the restaurant had seen in its 20 years. Keanu Reeves sat at the head of a hastily assembled row of tables, his phone open to a banking app while Giovanni brought fresh coffee for everyone. Lisa perched nervously on her chair, still processing the evening's events, while Mike sat opposite her, his earlier bravado replaced by genuine remorse. "Here's what I'm thinking," Keanu began, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the table's surface. "Angelo's isn't just a restaurant. It's a community. And communities take care of their own." He looked at Giovanni, who nodded slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in his eyes. "What if we created an emergency fund for the staff? A safety net that prevents desperate choices?" The actor began typing on his phone, speaking as he worked. "I'm transferring $50,000 as seed money. This isn't a handout, it's an investment in people." He turned to Giovanni. "The restaurant matches a percentage of tips into the fund. Staff can borrow interest-free when they face medical bills, family emergencies, or other critical needs." Mike's hands trembled around his coffee cup. "My mother's treatments cost $3,000 a month. Insurance covers some, but—" His voice cracked. "I didn't know what else to do." "Now you'll have options," Keanu replied. "But there's more to this than money. Lisa, you mentioned you have a literature degree." When she nodded, he continued. "Giovanni, how many of your staff are working here while putting their dreams on hold?" The restaurant owner scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Many. Antonio in the kitchen. He wants to be a chef but can't afford culinary school. Maria, our morning hostess, she's halfway through nursing school. Then let's make Angelo's a place of growth, not just survival." Keanu's eyes lit up with purpose. "The emergency fund is just the beginning. What if we created a scholarship program? Start small. Maybe 2 staff members per year. They keep working part-time while pursuing their education or training. The restaurant gains skilled, loyal employees. The staff gains a future." Lisa felt her throat tighten. The possibility of finishing her writing degree, of showing her children that dreams don't have to die, suddenly seemed real. Giovanni was already pulling out his reading glasses, grabbing a notepad to sketch out implementation details. "But there's one more thing," Keanu said, turning to Mike. "You've broken trust, but you've also shown us a blind spot in how we support each other. Your mother's medical bills, that's this month's emergency fund priority. But you'll need to earn back everyone's trust." Mike nodded vigorously, tears streaming down his face. "Anything. I'll do anything. You'll work split shifts, half your time serving, half helping Giovanni set up the fund's administration. You'll see both sides, the struggle and the solution. And you'll share your story with new hires, so they understand there's always a better choice than betraying their work family." Giovanni cleared his throat, emotion making his accent thicker than usual. "We can announce it next week. A new chapter for Angelo's. The customers, They always ask how to help when they hear our stories. Maybe we create a way for them to contribute to the fund too. Small donations added to their bills if they choose, Keanu agreed. But it has to be more than charity. This is about dignity, about creating a place where everyone can grow. He pulled out more bills from his wallet. Lisa, this is for a new computer. I want you to start writing again, even if it's just an hour after your kids are asleep. The scholarship program will need success stories. The night had grown late, the kitchen long silent, but energy hummed through the group as they planned. They drafted guidelines for the fund, sketched out application processes for the scholarships, and created a timeline for implementation. Keanu shared stories from his own journey, about the people who'd believed in him when he had nothing but dreams and determination. As midnight approached, Lisa's phone buzzed, her babysitter checking in. The real world began to seep back in, but it felt different now, full of possibility rather than pressure. The weight of constant worry had lifted slightly from her shoulders, replaced by something that felt remarkably like hope. Mike approached her as they prepared to leave, his eyes red but clear. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "I never thought about who I was really stealing from. I promise I'll make it right." Keanu watched the interaction from across the room, a small smile playing at his lips. He'd come to Angelo's by chance, seeking a quiet dinner away from Hollywood's chaos. Instead, he'd found an opportunity to create lasting change. His fame often felt like a burden, but moments like this reminded him of its power to catalyze transformation. Giovanni was the last to leave, carefully locking up his beloved restaurant. Tomorrow, Angelo's would begin its evolution from a simple Italian eatery into a model of community support and sustainable change. The security camera that had caught Mike's theft would now witness something far more valuable: the growth of people who'd been given the chance to become their best selves. In the parking lot, Keanu's driver waited patiently in a modest black car. The actor shook hands with everyone, exchanging numbers with Giovanni to follow up on the fund's implementation. As he turned to leave, he paused, looking back at the restaurant's warm windows. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the biggest changes start with the smallest moments of choice." With that, he disappeared into the Los Angeles night, leaving behind a group of people whose lives had been transformed by an evening that began with theft but ended with hope. News of what happened at Angelo's spread through Los Angeles like wildfire. At first, it traveled through whispered conversations between servers at nearby restaurants, then through social media posts from regular customers, and finally through a local news segment that caught the attention of major networks. The story resonated because it wasn't just about a celebrity's generosity, it was about transforming how a community cared for its own. 3 months after that rainy Thursday night, Angelo's had changed in subtle but significant ways. A small plaque near the entrance announced the Angelo's Family Fund, with a QR code that led to information about the Emergency Assistance Program. Regular customers now routinely added a few dollars to their bills, knowing it went directly to helping the staff pursue their dreams or weather difficult times. Mike Thompson's mother received her treatments without interruption. He worked diligently at his dual role, serving tables with renewed humility while helping Giovanni manage the fund's paperwork. His story became a powerful testimony during new employee orientations, where he spoke openly about his mistakes and the second chance that changed his life. Lisa Martinez enrolled in evening writing classes at the local community college. Her children noticed the change in her, the spark in her eyes when she talked about her stories, the way she stayed up late typing on her new laptop. Sophia, her daughter, started keeping a journal too, inspired by watching her mother reclaim her passion. The restaurant industry took notice. Other establishments began implementing similar programs, reaching out to Giovanni for guidance. A popular food magazine ran a feature story titled "The Angelo's Effect: How One Restaurant is Redefining Service Industry Support." The article caught the attention of state legislators, who began drafting bills to incentivize businesses that created employee emergency funds. Keanu Reeves returned to Angelo's 1 month after his initial visit, this time with his business manager and a team of financial advisors. They spent an afternoon with Giovanni, creating a formal structure for the scholarship program. The actor insisted on remaining anonymous in the fund's official documentation, but his influence helped attract additional supporters from Hollywood's elite. The first scholarship recipients were announced at a staff meeting that brought tears to many eyes. Antonio from the kitchen received funding for culinary school, while Maria secured support to complete her nursing degree. Both continued working part-time at Angelo's, their schedules carefully arranged around their classes. Their progress reports were posted on a new bulletin board in the break room, inspiring others to submit their own applications. Local media followed up on the story 6 months later. They found Lisa working on her first novel during lunch breaks, her tip income now supplemented by occasional freelance writing assignments. The reporter interviewed Mike, who had been promoted to assist with staff development, using his experience to help identify and support employees facing personal crises before they made desperate choices. The emergency fund proved its worth beyond medical bills and education. When a busser's apartment burned down, the fund provided temporary housing assistance. When a line cook needed emergency dental surgery, the paperwork was processed within hours. Each instance strengthened the sense of community within Angelo's walls. Giovanni expanded the restaurant's training program, partnering with local schools to offer internships and mentorship opportunities. The kitchen became a learning space during off-hours, with experienced staff teaching cooking classes to colleagues interested in culinary careers. The restaurant's reputation grew not just for its food, but for its commitment to nurturing talent and supporting dreams. Other celebrities who dined at Angelo's often added substantial amounts to the fund, inspired by the tangible impact they could see. But more touching were the regular customers who became invested in the staff's success stories. They asked about Antonio's progress in culinary school, celebrated when Maria passed her nursing exams, and watched with pride as Lisa's confidence as a writer grew. The restaurant industry's high turnover rate dropped dramatically at Angelo's. Employees stayed, invested in their own growth and the community they built. The quality of service improved naturally. Happy, supported staff translated to better customer experiences. Revenue increased, allowing Giovanni to expand both the emergency fund and scholarship program. A year after the incident, a National Restaurant Association honored Angelo's with an Innovation Award for workplace culture. In his acceptance speech, Giovanni spoke about the night that transformed his restaurant. He didn't mention Keanu by name, respecting the actor's desire for privacy, but he talked about how one person's choice to intervene with compassion could catalyze lasting change. The most profound changes were often the quietest. It showed in the way staff members looked out for each other, offering support before it was needed. It appeared in the grateful tears of a new hire who learned about the emergency fund during orientation. It manifested in the proud smiles of employees attending night classes, their dreams no longer deferred but actively pursued. The ripples continued to spread outward, touching lives far beyond Angelo's walls. Other restaurants in other cities began their own programs, adapted to their unique communities but built on the same foundation of support and opportunity. What started as one actor's response to a tip theft had grown into a movement, proving that sometimes the smallest moments of intervention could lead to the most significant transformations. 2 years passed since that transformative night at Angelo's. The restaurant's warm glow still beckoned customers on Wilshire Boulevard, but inside, everything had evolved. Lisa Martinez now moved through the dining room not as a server but as the restaurant's assistant manager, her confident stride reflecting the journey she'd taken. Her first novel, a story about resilience and second chances, sat proudly displayed near the host's stand, published by a small but respected press. Her children had flourished too. Sophia, now 10, excelled in her school's writing program, while Miguel's asthma was properly managed thanks to the stable medical coverage Lisa's new position provided. The emergency fund that had started with Keanu Reeves' seed money had grown into a robust support system, helping countless staff members weather personal storms and pursue their ambitions. Mike Thompson's transformation proved perhaps the most profound. After his mother's successful treatment, he dedicated himself to expanding the emergency fund's reach. He now managed the program full-time, traveling to other restaurants across the country to help them implement similar systems. His past mistake had become a powerful teaching tool, showing others that redemption was possible when communities chose support over judgment. Giovanni, his silver hair now completely white, had become a sought-after speaker at industry conferences. Angelo's model of employee support had been adopted by restaurants in 12 states, with pending legislation in several others to provide tax incentives for businesses establishing similar programs. The original emergency fund had helped finance 28 educational pursuits for critical medical procedures and countless smaller emergencies that might otherwise have derailed lives. Antonio graduated from culinary school and returned to Angelo's as sous chef, his modern interpretations of classic Italian dishes bringing new energy to the menu. Maria completed her nursing degree but kept 2 shifts a week at the restaurant, saying the community meant too much to leave entirely. The bulletin board in the break room overflowed with success stories. Degrees earned, certifications completed, dreams achieved. Keanu Reeves remained connected to Angelo's in his own quiet way. He never sought recognition for his role in the restaurant's transformation, but he returned every few months for a peaceful dinner in his corner table. He watched with satisfaction as the seeds of change he'd planted grew into something far beyond what anyone had imagined that rainy night. The restaurant industry statistics told part of the story. Employee retention at Angelo's reached record levels, with turnover dropping to less than 10% annually. But the real measure of success showed in the intangible changes. The way staff members supported each other through challenges, the proud updates posted on the break room board, the tears of relief when emergency assistance arrived just in time. Lisa's office, once Giovanni's small sanctuary, now displayed a framed photo from the first scholarship ceremony. In it, the entire staff stood together, their faces bright with possibility. Below it hung a simple quote that had become the restaurant's unofficial motto. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments of choice. The security camera that had once caught Mike's desperate theft now recorded daily moments of kindness. Staff members covering shifts for colleagues in school, spontaneous celebrations of personal achievements, quiet conversations offering support during difficult times. Angelo's had become more than a restaurant. It was a model for how workplace communities could lift each other up, one person at a time. And every night, as Lisa closed the restaurant, she remembered that rainy evening when everything changed. Her children's college funds grew steadily, her novel sequel took shape in late-night writing sessions, and the weight of constant worry had been replaced by the warmth of security and purpose. In the end, what started as one actor's intervention in a moment of theft had become a testament to the transformative power of compassion, second chances, and the choice to believe in people's potential for change. 5 years after the night that changed everything, Angelo's celebrated its 25th anniversary. The evening buzzed with a special energy as current and former staff members gathered to commemorate not just the restaurant's longevity, but the movement it had sparked. Lisa Martinez, now the general manager, stood at the podium. Her published trilogy of novels displayed proudly nearby. Her children, teenagers now, helped serve at the special event, already learning the value of community and hard work. The Angelo's model had spread to over 500 restaurants across the country. The emergency fund concept had evolved into a nationwide network, with businesses supporting each other during natural disasters and economic downturns. Mike Thompson had established a consulting firm dedicated to implementing workplace support systems. His past mistake transformed into a mission that helped thousands. In a quiet corner of the restaurant, Keanu Reeves sat at his usual table, observing the celebration with quiet satisfaction. A young server approached him, a single mother recently hired through Angelo's new outreach program. She shared her story of struggle and hope, not knowing that she spoke to the person who had set these changes in motion years ago. He listened intently, just as he had listened to Lisa's story that rainy night. The security camera still watched over the dining room, but now it captured a different kind of scene. A workplace where kindness had become the foundation of success, where dreams were nurtured instead of deferred, and where one moment of choice continued to create ripples of transformation. On its screen, the daily life of Angelo's played out, a living testament to the truth that when people choose to believe in each other's potential, extraordinary change becomes possible.